Hi, Anatomy 41 students. This is your workshop on the sliding filament theory, which really describes the processes behind skeletal muscle contraction and the contraction or sliding past of myofilaments in your muscle fibers. Before we get into the actual processes and steps of the sliding filament theory, it's really important to understand the anatomy of skeletal muscle before we dive into how it is able to contract. So this picture is showing the basics of the organization of an entire skeletal muscle. Shown here, kind of where my laser is where the tendon would be. So we're showing an entire skeletal muscle. Let's say that this is your biceps brachii, for example, the muscle in your anterior upper arm. The tendon would connect the biceps brachii to the bone that it is attached to. So a tendon always attaches a muscle to a bone. From there, we have the entire muscle that's covered with a layer of fascia, which is connective tissue that's keeping the muscle together. From there, covering the skeletal muscle, we have another layer of what we call epimysium. The prefix MYS or the root always has to do with muscle. So if you see myo or MYS, that's always referring to a muscle fiber. So epimysium is covering the entire skeletal muscle. Then from here, we see these fascicle bundles that have been taken out. And you can see individual bundles of fascicles kind of outlined in this cross section of the entire skeletal muscle. But covering the individual fascicle is the perimysium. So right where my laser is, this is the covering of a fascicle. And this is your perimysium, just another layer of connective tissue that's helping to organize all of this skeletal muscle anatomical features. Coming out of the fascicles are bundles of muscle cells. And a muscle cell, when we're referring to it in muscle tissue, is called a muscle fiber. So the word muscle fiber and muscle cell are used interchangeably. Covering the individual muscle fiber, right where my laser is the endomysium. And the endomysium is just another layer of connective tissue that's covering the entire muscle fiber. So in review, we have the entire skeletal muscle covered with the epimysium. We see these fascicle bundles covered in perimysium, and fascicles are made up of muscle fibers covered in endomysium. So coming off of the muscle fiber or coming out of the muscle fiber, we're starting to see more parts of the skeletal muscle. We'll see things like sarcomeres, we'll see sarcoplasmic reticulum, even being pulled out of the muscle fiber. This is starting to show you the myofilaments, which are the protein filaments that make up your muscle fibers. And we'll go over those next. So the myofibrils contain specialized proteins referred to as myofilaments. So we're seeing this prefix myo several times here. Again, that refers to a skeletal muscle fiber. The myofibrils are what make up the muscle fiber. So if we pull out one myofibril and then we zoom in on it, we can see thick and thin filaments making up the sarcomere. So these thick and thin filaments that make up the sarcomere are arranged in a way that they are overlapping each other. So this individual sarcomere is the unique arrangement that allows for muscle contraction to occur. It's bordered by Z discs, and the Z discs kind of border one end of the sarcomere to the other end. And attached to the Z discs are the actin or thin filaments that are shown in this light green color. The thick filaments, the myosin, are the thicker protein myofilaments. And because we have areas of more thick or overlapping filaments and areas where it's only thin or actin filaments, this is what gives our skeletal muscle tissue a striated or a striped appearance, because what you're looking at are thicker sections where you see lots of overlap between the two filaments, and thinner or lighter colored sections where you're only looking at thin filaments. Throughout the muscle fiber, you're going to see multiple nuclei. You'll see mitochondria, which are important for creating ATP in the muscle fiber, which is very necessary for muscle contraction to occur. You'll see things like the sarcoplasmic reticulum, which stores calcium ions, which is a very important player in muscle contraction as well. So a little more look at the sarcomere. Again, this is the arrangement of thick and thin filaments. A sarcomere is the contractile unit for muscle contraction, and your muscle fibers have many, many sarcomeres throughout them. The sarcomere causes the striated appearance with those light and dark regions of myosin and actin. And you can see here portions of your thick filament, those are made of myosin proteins, and portions of the thin filament made of troponin, actin, and tropomyosin. We're going to go through each of the thick and thin filaments in detail now, because once you understand what the thick filament is and what your thin filament is, then we can talk about how they contract and slide past each other in the sliding filament theory. I've included this slide just to show you what a relaxed sarcomere looks like versus a contracted sarcomere. So at the top, you see Z disc to Z disc. This is one sarcomere, and this is showing a relaxed sarcomere. You notice that your thick and thin filaments are not as overlapping, so the muscle is relaxed. Versus the contracted sarcomere, the only difference you see is that the Z discs have come closer together, closer to, this is called the M line in the middle of the H zone. The contracted sarcomere is showing how your thin filaments have slid over your thick filaments to shorten the entire sarcomere. This happens over and over again so that your entire skeletal muscle will contract or shorten due to the shortening and contracting of these sarcomeres. When your whole skeletal muscles contract and shorten, they pull on the bone that they're attached to through the tendon, and that causes movement of your skeletal system of your body. It's also important to note that the length of actin and myosin of those myofilaments never change. The shortening or changing of shape of the sarcomere is just due to the fact that they are sliding past each other. And that is where we get to this idea of the sliding filament theory. It describes the steps that are behind the process of actin and myosin sliding past each other to cause muscle contraction. So what is the thick filament? We see a portion of your thick filament shown here, but it's actually made of about 200 to 500 molecules of a protein called myosin. And we've zoomed in on one myosin molecule here. You'll see a flexible hinge region that's going to go through a power stroke that will actually tug the actin past it. We see heads on the individual myosin molecules. These heads will be what will attach to the thin filament on actin to form the cross bridge. And then you see the tail on the myosin molecule. I think a myosin protein kind of looks like a golf club, where you see the head, that will be the attachment to your actin, and the tail is the part that has this hinge region. So we have about 200 to 500 of these myosin proteins that are kind of just put together to create this thick filament. So you'll see multiple heads kind of coming off, and their tails are all connected together. The thin filament in our sarcomeres then is actually composed of three different proteins: the troponin protein, the actin proteins, and the tropomyosin proteins. So let's go through actin first. The actin proteins are these green kind of helical shaped beads that are spun around each other. Actin proteins contain the active site where the head of your thick filament will bind to, and we call that binding or connection a cross bridge. The tropomyosin are these long orange, kind of spaghetti-like proteins that are covering up the active site or blocking the active sites on actin when our muscles are relaxed. And this just means that when tropomyosin blocks these active sites on actin, that means your myosin heads, the thick filament, cannot bind to actin, so no contraction will occur. The troponin protein, which is this kind of lighter shade of yellow, the troponin protein will sit on the tropomyosin protein and will determine its position. So the troponin protein is kind of what determines if tropomyosin will block or not block actin's active site. When troponin binds to a calcium ion, this will cause it to change shape, and that makes the tropomyosin move off of actin's active site. So that's kind of our first hint. We need calcium in order for muscle contraction to occur because calcium will bind to troponin, and that will move tropomyosin off of actin's active site so that myosin heads can bind. All right, so before we talk about that sliding filament theory and how actin and myosin slide past each other to produce a muscle contraction, we have to take one step back because we know that our muscle fibers need an electrical stimulus in order to contract. So we need to answer the question, how does a nerve impulse or an action potential travel from a nerve cell to a muscle cell? And this is where we need to look at the neuromuscular junction, which is the connection between a motor neuron and the sarcolemma, which is the plasma membrane of a muscle fiber. So we kind of have three basic steps that occur, and I've labeled them 1, 2, 3 for you with little descriptions next to them. This lightning bolt shape is signifying an action potential, which is the signal that's traveling down a motor neuron that eventually needs to get passed to a muscle fiber in order to cause a muscle to contract. So we have synaptic vesicles at the synaptic knob, which is the end of our motor neuron, and the synaptic vesicles store a very important neurotransmitter called acetylcholine. And you'll see in your textbooks, acetylcholine is abbreviated ACH. Acetylcholine will be released into the synaptic cleft, which is the space between the motor neuron and your muscle fiber. And acetylcholine release is triggered when that action potential reaches the end of your motor neuron. So acetylcholine gets released from the synaptic vesicles, travels across the cleft or the space, and then acetylcholine will bind to acetylcholine receptors on the sarcolemma, the plasma membrane of your muscle fiber. The binding of these acetylcholine neurotransmitters to the receptors actually changes the membrane potential voltage in the sarcolemma, and that begins or initiates an action potential in your muscle fiber. That action potential travels along the sarcolemma and eventually down into the T-tubules, so that these T-tubules are carrying the action potential kind of down into the center of your muscle fiber. When the action potential travels down into the muscle fiber, it will pass by the sarcoplasmic reticulum, and that tells your sarcoplasmic reticulum to release calcium ions. The sarcoplasmic reticulum is where calcium ions are stored, and calcium ions need to be released from the sarcoplasmic reticulum to initiate our sliding filament theory. All right, so now we are going to go through the steps of the sliding filament theory. We talked about the neuromuscular junction and how that action potential gets passed from your motor neuron to the muscle fiber. We know that the action potential travels down through the T-tubules into the muscle fiber, which stimulates the release of calcium from the sarcoplasmic reticulum. From here, calcium is a very important ion that is going to bind to these troponin proteins that causes them to change shape, which will move tropomyosin off of actin's binding site. So now we've kind of made clear the binding sites for myosin, and we'll see myosin heads binding or attaching to actin, and this will form a connection that we call a cross bridge. From here, we are in ready position to cause movement of these filaments to slide past each other. ADP and a phosphate ion will be released as the myosin head performs a power stroke, which is basically just a bending or a movement of the myosin head going from the cross bridge attachment to the power stroke. And you can see the arrows are tugging the actin past it as that power stroke or movement of the myosin head is causing the sliding of the actin past it towards the center of the sarcomere. A couple steps are necessary to finish this process. An ATP is necessary to come along to attach to the myosin head in order to detach this connection between myosin and actin. Why is this important? This is an important step because we never want our muscles or our sarcomeres to remain in a constant contracted state. ATP is necessary to come along and detach that connection between myosin and actin so that our muscle can eventually get back into a relaxed position. And the myosin head is going to return to a ready position to go through another power stroke cycling step. So we've seen the myosin head completely detached. We will see it get back into ready position. We'll see more calcium being bound, and eventually we'll see the myosin head attach again, go through a power stroke, and this sliding filament cycle will continue as the myosin heads are causing the actin to slide past them towards the center of the sarcomere, overall causing the sarcomere to shorten. Again, this happens many, many times over throughout the entire skeletal muscle to cause the entire muscle to contract. So how do our muscles relax? This is kind of the final last step. Muscles then eventually go back to the relaxed state when acetylcholine is cleaved. That means when it's like broken apart or it just dissipates in the synaptic cleft. So acetylcholine will kind of be broken apart. So that'll kind of stop an action potential from occurring in our muscle fiber. Calcium will also be resorbed back into your sarcoplasmic reticulum. And this will the calcium will be stored in your sarcoplasmic reticulum until another action potential travels through it and we have another contraction cycle occurring. The thick and thin filament will be completely detached from each other. So that interaction will relax and our muscle will return to its normal resting length. And that's due to special properties known as elasticity that our muscles can return to their normal resting length. And that is the sliding filament theory. Thank you guys for listening, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.